The evacuation, the sky above Luminara colony burned with colors that had no name in any language but grief. Elder Crystallis stood at the observation deck of the transport ship. Eternal song. Her crystalline form refracting the dying light of their home into 1,000 fractured rainbows across the metal walls. Behind her, 347 souls, all that remained of the once thriving settlement, huddled together in telepathic silence, their inner lights flickering like candles in a storm dot through the viewport. She watched the Dominion Empire's harvester ships descend upon the moon they'd called home for 6 generations. The structures her great-grandmother had sung into existence, buildings of living crystal that hummed with the collective memory of their people shattered under focused plasma beams. Each destruction sent a psychic shockwave through every Seralan aboard the 3 escaping vessels. 70-2 hours the Dominion had given them. Evacuate or be evacuated permanently. The moon of Luminara held deposits of gravidium-7, a rare element that made faster-than-light travel more efficient. The Seralan had known it was there, of course. They'd lived above it, farmed around it, raised their children in its gentle gravitational embrace. But they'd never touched it. Their people didn't mine, didn't excavate, didn't wound worlds for profit. The Dominion had no such qualms. Elder, came the harmonic whisper of Captain Resonance, his usually vibrant azure form dulled to a sickly gray. The morning light reports the recyclers are operating at 40% capacity. The silent harmony is down to 30. We have perhaps 6 weeks of life support, maybe less with the children consuming more oxygen. Crystallis turned from the viewport, her faceted eyes catching the dim emergency lighting. Around the cargo hold, never meant to house living beings, Seralan families pressed together. Parents wrapped their bodies around children, trying to shield them from the cold, from the fear, from the telepathic weight of collective despair that threatened to suffocate them all. A young one named Prism, barely 3 cycles old, sat alone in a corner. Her parents had been in the eastern settlement when the Dominion's warning shot had vaporized it. Her light pulsed erratically, the visual signature of a child crying in the Seralan way, in absolute silence, except for the waves of sorrow that rippled through every mind aboard. "Where do we go?" Crystallis asked, though she already knew the answer. "Away," Resonance replied. "Just ... away." 1.2 The Journey into Darkness. 17 days into the void, the silent harmony died. It wasn't dramatic. There was no explosion, no distress call. One moment, the telepathic link connected all 3 ships in a web of shared consciousness. The next, 94 minds simply ... vanished. Crystallis felt it like an amputation. One moment, she could sense Engineer Melodia's determined focus as she rerouted power, could feel young Chorus's wonder as he discovered a new mathematical pattern in the stars. The next moment, nothing. A hole in the fabric of their collective existence where those souls had been. The remaining ships limped onward through uncharted space, following nothing but the desperate hope that somewhere, somehow, they'd find a world that would take them in. "The Galactic Council won't help us," Resonance said during one of their planning sessions. Around them, makeshift maps of nearby star systems flickered on salvaged datapads. "We contacted 12 member species. 8 didn't respond. 4 said their loss prevented harboring economic refugees." "Economic refugees," Crystallis repeated, the words tasting like ash. "Is that what genocide looks like when you file it in triplicate?" The children were dimming. That was the worst part. Seralan children were supposed to glow like miniature stars, their crystalline bodies radiating hope and possibility. Now they sat in clusters, their lights barely brighter than dying embers, conserving energy their bodies desperately needed for growth and learning. Prism hadn't spoken, hadn't projected a single thought since the evacuation. She sat, always alone, her small form transparent where it should have been opalescent with youth. On day 23, their sensors picked up something, a faint electromagnetic signature that suggested inhabited worlds. It wasn't a major system, not even on the Galactic Council's commercial routes. But it was something. "Set course," Crystallis ordered. "Maximum speed. Whatever's left in the drives." The Morning Light's captain protested. "Elder, if we push the engines that hard, we won't have power for deceleration. We'll either make it or we're already dead." "Captain," Crystallis interrupted, her thoughts cutting through the telepathic space with uncharacteristic sharpness. "We're just deciding whether to die drifting in the void or trying for solid ground." The vote was unanimous. 1.3 arrival at New Providence. Crash was controlled only in the sense that they hit the ground at an angle that didn't instantly vaporize everyone. Aboard, the eternal song carved a half-mile trench through golden wheat fields before finally shuddering to a halt against a hillside. The Morning Light came down 3 kilometers away, its landing only slightly more graceful. Emergency systems screamed. Hull breaches vented atmosphere. And through it all, the Seralan remained silent. Their telepathic network focused entirely on protecting the children, shielding their minds from the trauma of impact. When the dust settled, Crystallis pulled herself from the wreckage. Her left arm had fractured a spiderweb of cracks running through the crystal that would take months to heal properly. Around her, survivors emerged into alien sunlight, blinking at a sky that was the wrong shade of blue, breathing air that tasted of strange pollens and unfamiliar soil. "Scan for hostiles," she managed to project. "Elder," Resonance replied, his thoughts tinged with wonder. "I'm detecting life signs. Thousands of them. This world is inhabited." Crystallis's heart, or the electromagnetic organ that served that purpose, sank. They'd crashed on someone's world, destroyed their crops, probably violated a dozen territorial laws. The inhabitants would be well within their rights to destroy them where they stood. "Defensive formations," she ordered. "Protect the children. If they're going to kill us, at least let the young ones die without seeing." "Hello?" The voice came from behind a twisted piece of hull plating. Not telepathic, verbal. Crystallis spun, her body instinctively refracting light into defensive patterns. Preparing to blind, disorient an attacker, a figure emerged, bipedal, covered in some sort of woven material, with a face dominated by 2 forward-facing eyes. In its arms, it carried supplies, medical equipment. "Oh my God," the figure said, and Crystallis's translator implant struggled with the local dialect. "Are you hurt? How many of you are there?" It was a female. Crystallis recognized that much from the vocal patterns. She approached slowly, hands raised, making herself smaller, less threatening. "I'm Sarah," the human said. "Sarah Chun, you crashed on my family's farm. I've called for help, but..." She paused, seeing the children emerging from the wreckage. Seeing Prism, tiny and dim, cradled in the arms of another survivor. "Oh, babies. You have children with you." Sarah turned and called out in her native tongue. 2 smaller humans appeared offspring, Crystallis realized. A boy and a girl, both staring with wide, curious eyes. "Maya," Sarah said to the smaller female, "get the water containers from the truck. The big ones. Danny, run back to the house and tell your father to bring every blanket we have." "Go," the children scattered. Sarah knelt in the torn earth, setting down her medical supplies, and gestured for the Seralan to come closer. "I don't know what you need," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "I don't know how to help you, but we're going to figure it out, okay? You're safe now. You're safe." The young human girl Maya returned with containers of water. She approached Prism, who had been set down on a relatively flat piece of debris. and carefully, gently, offered the container. "Here," Maya said, her voice soft. "Are you thirsty?" Prism's light flickered once, twice. Then, for the first time in 23 days, it brightened just slightly. She reached out with a trembling crystalline hand and accepted the water god, an elder chrysalis, who had led her people through evacuation and death and the endless void. Felt something she thought she'd lost forever. Hope.*1.4 Humanity's response. Within 3 hours. The wheat field had become a disaster response center. Humans arrived in vehicles that rumbled across the torn earth doctors. Engineers, farmers, people whose job titles Crystallis didn't yet understand, but whose intention was crystal clear. They came to help. Governor Marcus Webb arrived in an aircraft that kicked up dust and wheat chaff, flanked by security personnel who immediately began establishing a perimeter. Not against the Seralan, Crystallis realized, but protecting them from whatever else might arrive. Webb was a tall human with graying hair at his temples and eyes that had seen their share of hardship. He surveyed the crash site, the damaged ships, the exhausted refugees, and his face cycled through several expressions too quickly for Crystallis to interpret. Then he turned to his aide. "Call an emergency town meeting. Every citizen who can make it. 2 hours. "Governor," the aide protested, "shouldn't we contact the Galactic Council first? Establish proper protocols for—" "2 hours," Webb repeated, "and get me everything we have on crystalline-based biology. Someone track down Dr. Tanaka. I don't care if she's off duty. We need her now." The meeting took place in New Providence's community center, a simple structure that seemed designed for gatherings rather than governance. Through the windows, Crystallis could see the townspeople arriving, humans of various sizes, colors, and ages, all converging with the kind of organized chaos that suggested this was common practice for them. Webb didn't waste time. He stood at the front of the assembly, with Crystallis beside him, and laid out the situation in blunt terms. 3 hours ago, 2 ships crashed in the Chun family's eastern fields. They contained 347 refugees from a species called the Seralan. They were forced from their home by the Dominion Empire. They have children with them. Their ships are beyond repair. Their supplies are nearly exhausted, and they need our help. A hand rose in the crowd. "What does the Galactic Council say?" "Nothing yet," Webb admitted. "And frankly, I'm not waiting for them to decide whether these people deserve to live. I'm asking you, the citizens of New Providence, do we help them?" Silence fell. Crystallis felt the weight of hundreds of human eyes upon her crystalline form. She knew how she must look to them, alien, strange, possibly threatening. She prepared herself for rejection, for the democratic cruelty that the Galactic Council called due process. An elderly human in the back stood up. "Governor," question. "What do they eat?" The question caught Crystallis off guard. We photosynthesize primarily, but we can process simple organic compounds. Fruits, vegetables, anything with— "I've got greenhouses," the human interrupted. "Not using half of them this season. They can take what they need." "I can donate space in my barn," another called out. "It's insulated, got water hookups." "Could house maybe 20? "The community center has cots in storage," someone else added. "From when we housed those flood refugees 10 years back. My wife's a nurse." A young human stood. "She's not licensed for ... you. Crystal people, but she's willing to learn." The proposals came faster than Crystallis could track. Housing, food, medical care, education for the children. Within 20 minutes, the humans of New Providence had organized themselves into response teams, assigned resources, established priorities. Governor Webb let it continue for several minutes, then raised his hand for silence. Show of hands. All in favor of granting asylum to the Saralan people and providing them full access to New Providence's resources? Every hand rose. Every single one? Crystalis's legs gave out. She caught herself against the podium, her crystalline form refracting the overhead lights into rainbow patterns across the walls. Through the telepathic network, she felt the collective shock of her people watching from the medical tents Sarah had organized. Idon single quotes T. Her translator struggled with the emotion flooding her thoughts. I don't understand. You don't know us. We have nothing to offer you. We destroyed your crops. Why would you? Sarah Chun, holding her daughter's hand, stepped forward. Because you needed help, she said simply. What other reason do you need? That night, as the Saralan settled into temporary shelters scattered across New Providence greenhouses converted to housing, barns fitted with light panels to accommodate their photosynthetic needs. The community center, transformed into a children's dormitory, Chrysalis stood beneath alien stars and allowed herself to believe in the converted gymnasium. Dr. Yuki Tanaka worked through the night, cross-referencing xenobiology databases with scans of Saralan physiology, determined to understand what nutrients they needed, what illnesses might threaten them, how to keep them healthy. In Sarah Chun's barn, Prism slept between two human children who had refused to leave her side until she felt safe enough to dim her light and rest. And in the governor's office, Marcus Webb composed a message to every human colony in their sector. We have taken in refugees. We will need resources. We will need support. But we cannot turn away people in need. If that puts us at odds with the Galactic Council, so be it. Some things matter more than politics. Humanity protects its own. And as of today, the Saralan are our own. He sent the message, knowing full well it might bring consequences none of them were prepared for. He sent it anyway, because that's what humans did. The promise kept. 2.1. Building a new life. 3 months transformed New Providence in ways no one could have predicted. The morning sun rose over wheat. Fields that sang. It wasn't a metaphor. Crops literally produced harmonic frequencies now. A side effect of Saralan agricultural techniques that Elder Chrysalis had shared with the human farmers. The Saralan didn't just grow food, they encouraged it, resonated with it, created sympathetic vibrations that accelerated growth and enhanced nutritional content. Sarah Chun stood at the edge of her newly replanted eastern field, watching the grain stalks sway to a rhythm that had nothing to do with wind. Beside her, Resonance, the former ship captain who discovered an unexpected talent for agriculture, adjusted his internal frequencies, fine-tuning the harmonic field. The yield projections are remarkable, Sarah said, checking her datapad. 40% increase over last season, and the grain has higher protein content. How is that even possible? Resonance's crystalline form refracted the morning light, casting rainbow patterns across the golden wheat. All living things respond to vibration at the quantum level. We simply ask the plants what they need, and they tell us. Then we help them achieve it. You talk to wheat. Wheat talks. We listen. He paused, his internal light pulsing with what Sarah had learned to recognize as Saralan humor. Your scientists will spend decades trying to explain it with mathematics. We just know it works. In the town center, the New Providence Primary School had undergone its own transformation. The building now housed both human and Saralan children, creating an educational ecosystem unlike anything in Galactic Council records. Maya Chun sat in mathematics class next to Prism, who had regained her opalescent glow, and then some. The young Saralan's ability to visualize complex, geometric patterns in 3 dimensions had revolutionized how the human children understood spatial relationships. Meanwhile, Prism had learned to laugh not telepathically, but with actual vocal sounds, mimicking the human children she'd come to adore. "If you have 12 apples," the teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, was saying, "and you give away 4. How many?" Prism's hand shot up. Her voice, still uncertain with the mechanics of speech, came out in a musical chime. "But why give away apples?" "Should ask first if they want apples. Maybe they want oranges. Or maybe they have too many fruits already and need vegetables for balanced nutrition." The human children giggled. Mrs. Rodriguez smiled. "That's actually a very good point, Prism. Let's rework the problem. If you have 12 apples and you ask your friends what they need." In the community center cultural-exchange-hub, Elder Chrystalis taught a meditation class to 30 humans of various ages. They sat in a circle, attempting to quiet their minds enough to perceive the harmonic frequencies that Saraland used for communication. Most of them failed spectacularly. Human minds, Chrystalis had discovered, were beautifully chaotic, full of competing thoughts, emotions, memories, and projections, all firing simultaneously. Teaching them to achieve the mental clarity required for harmonic resonance was like teaching a hurricane to hold still. But they tried. Every evening they came and tried. "I felt something," exclaimed an elderly man named Thomas. "Just for a second, I could sense. It was like music, but inside my head." "That was my stomach growling," his wife commented dryly. We skipped lunch. The class erupted in laughter, humans and Saraland together, the sound mixing with harmonic pulses of amusement that created an entirely new form of shared joy. Governor Webb's office had become the unofficial integration headquarters. His walls were covered with charts, tracking everything from resource allocation to cultural exchange programs to the economic impact of VAW. Sarawan knowledge-sharing. Dr. Tanaka sat across from him, looking exhausted but satisfied. "The health screening results are in. Every Sarawan is now at optimal function. We've established baseline medical protocols, trained our staff on crystalline physiology, and created emergency response procedures. Honestly, Marcus, they're healthier than half our human population." "What about the psychological trauma?" Webb asked. "They witnessed genocide. They lost 94 of their people in space. That doesn't just go away." "No," Tanaka agreed. "But they're processing it. Sarawan grief is communal. They share the burden telepathically, which actually seems to prevent the kind of isolated PTSD we see in humans. And having purpose helps. They're not just refugees anymore. They're teachers, farmers, friends. They're building something new instead of just mourning what they lost." Webb nodded, then pulled up a holographic display of star charts. "That's good, because we're going to need them at full strength." Tanaka's expression shifted. "What's wrong?" "The Dominion has been asking questions. Their scouts have been probing our sector. It's only a matter of time before they figure out where the Sarawan went." He met her eyes. "And when they do, they're going to want them back." "Back? They nearly killed them." "No," Webb corrected grimly. "They drove them away so they could claim the Sarawan abandoned Luminara voluntarily. Which means legally, under Dominion law, the Sarawan are still Dominion subjects. And we're harboring fugitives." In the converted barn that had become Prism's home, the young Sarawan sat with Maya-chun and her brother Danny, working on a school project about family trees. Prism's section of the poster was notably empty. No parents, no siblings, just her name floating in a void of white paper. "You can put us down," Maya said suddenly. "As family, I mean. If you want." Prism's light flickered uncertainly. "But we are not genetic relatives. Your reproductive structures are completely different from." "So?" Danny interrupted. "You live with us. You eat with us. Mom taught you how to do that thing with your light when you're scared. Dad lets you use his workshop. You're basically our weird glowy sister. Weird? Prism's tone carried mock offense, a human emotion she'd learned to emulate perfectly. Weird in a good way, Maya assured her. The best way. Prism was quiet for a moment. Her internal light pulsing through colors that humans had learned meant she was experiencing strong emotions. Then carefully, she drew connecting lines on the family tree from herself to Maya, Danny, Sarah, and Thomas Chun. Family, she said softly. Yes, this is correct word. That evening, the community gathered for what had become a weekly tradition, the Harmony Festival. Humans brought instruments, guitars, drums, flutes, keyboards. Saralan brought their innate ability to produce and manipulate harmonic frequencies. Together, they created music that existed nowhere else in the galaxy. Elder Crystallis stood at the center of it all, conducting with subtle shifts in her resonance, weaving human melody and Saralan harmony into something transcendent. Around her, children of both species danced, while adults swayed, and the very air seemed to shimmer with the beauty of two peoples becoming one. Governor Webb watched from the sidelines, a glass of locally made wine in his hand. Sarah Chun joined him, her own glass raised in a casual toast. We did something good here, she said. We did, Webb agreed. I just hope it's enough. Enough for what? He didn't answer. He didn't need to. Sarah followed his gaze upward, past the festival lights, to the stars above. Somewhere out there, the Dominion was hunting .2.2. The Dominion arrives. The warning came at 0347 hours. Governor. Webb's cum device shrieked him awake with the Priority 1 alert that every colony administrator dreaded. Unknown vessels entering system space. He was dressed and in the Emergency Operations Center within 6 minutes. The night staff had already pulled up sensor data, and the displays painted a picture that made his blood run cold. 12 ships. Dominion configuration. Battle-ready formations. Hail them, Webb ordered. Standard diplomatic protocols. The response came within seconds. The face that appeared on the view screen was sharp and angular, a Dominion. Officer whose species name Webb couldn't remember, but whose expression conveyed universal menace. This is Admiral Vex of the Dominion. Enforcement Fleet. We have tracked fugitive. Subjects to your world. Under Dominion law and Galactic Council mutual assistance treaties, you are required to surrender all Saralan individuals immediately. Webb had spent the last 3 months preparing for this moment. He'd consulted with lawyers, studied every relevant treaty, and gamed out dozens of scenarios. None of that made it easier when the moment actually arrived. This is Governor Marcus Webb of New Providence Colony. The individuals you refer to are refugees who arrived here seeking asylum. They are under the protection of human colonial authority. We do not recognize your claim to them. Vex's expression didn't change. Your recognition is irrelevant. Galactic Council law is clear. Refugees must be processed through proper channels. You have taken in fugitives without authorization. Surrender them, or your colony will be classified as hostile and dealt with accordingly. Is that a threat, Admiral? It is a legal determination. Vex leaned forward. You are one minor agricultural colony. We are the Dominion Enforcement Fleet. This ends one way, Governor. The only question is how many of your people suffer before you accept reality. The transmission cut. Webb turned to his communications officer. Get me Elder Crystallis. And wake up everyone on the Defense Committee. Tell them we're going to Code Red. The emergency meeting took place in the command center as the colony scrambled to respond. Elder Crystallis arrived with resonance, and several other Saralan leaders, their lights dim with distress. Governor Webb, Crystallis began, her telepathic projection carrying a weight of resignation. We cannot allow you to sacrifice your colony for us. We will surrender ourselves. Perhaps if we— No. The word cut through the room like a blade. Webb stood at the head of the table, his jaw set, eyes hard. No, he repeated. You're not fugitives. You're people. And people don't get traded away like cargo because some empire decides it owns them. But they'll destroy you, Resonance protested. 12 warships against one agricultural colony? You have, 3 patrol boats and a mining platform with outdated weapons? This is not a fight you can win. Maybe not, Webb acknowledged. But it's a fight we can have. And sometimes that matters. Sarah Chun burst through the door, her daughter Maya in tow. I heard the alert. Are they really? Yes, Webb confirmed. The Dominion is here. They want the Sarawan. They've given us 48 hours to comply. Maya, 11 years old and usually quiet, stepped forward. Her voice shook, but her words were clear. We're not giving them Prism. Tell them no. Tell them they can't have her. And that's when it happened. Tears. Maya Chun, standing in a government command center surrounded by adults making life and death decisions, began to cry. Not dramatic, movie-style sobbing. Just quiet, genuine tears of fear and helplessness running down her face. Crystalis felt it, through the empathic link all Saralan shared with those they'd bonded with. The pure, uncomplicated love of a child, terrified of losing her friend. The desperate hope that somehow adults would fix this. The crushing weight of realizing that sometimes adults couldn't. Not one more tear, something whispered in Crystalis's mind. An old Saralan saying, from before the Dominion, from when her people had been strong enough to protect themselves and others. Not one more tear falls because of them. Governor Webb knelt down to Maya's level. Hey, look at me. We're not giving up your friend. We're not giving up any of them. I promise you that. But how? Maya's voice broke. They have warships. We have tractors. Webb smiled, though there was no humor in it. We have something better. We have a Priority 1 distress beacon and the most powerful phrase in human colonial law. He stood, turning to his communications officer. Send the signal. Full broadcast, all human frequencies. Authorization. Web Alpha 779. Governor, that authorization is for— I know what it's for. Send it. The officer's fingers flew across the controls. Across the command center, screens lit up with confirmation. Message transmitted. Spreading across human space at faster-than-light speeds. Carrying a simple coded phrase that every human colony, ship, and station would recognize instantly. Article 7. Protection of civilians under threat. The beacon every human had hoped. They'd never need to use. The call that said, we cannot protect our people alone. And we need you now. How long? Webb asked. The sensor officer checked his displays. Nearest human military presence is the patrol group at Kepler Station. At maximum FTL, 36 hours. Maybe 38. And we have 48 before the Dominion's deadline. Webb nodded, cutting it close. But that's what humans do best. Crystalis felt something stirring in her core, that same impossible hope she'd felt 3 months ago, when Sarah Chun had offered her water and safety. You think your people will come? Webb met her eyes. Admiral, I don't think. I know. You hurt one of ours. You face all of us. That's not just a nice saying. It's who we are. Asterisk 2.3 Humanity's answer. 48 hours that followed were the longest of Elder Crystalis's long life. The colony transformed. Farmers who'd been teaching Saralan about earth crops suddenly became militia members manning defensive positions. Greenhouses got converted into emergency shelters. The school was evacuated, with all children, human and Saralan alike, moved to the underground bunkers that every colony maintained but hoped never to use Dot Prism, clung to Maya as they descended into the shelter. "I am scared," she admitted, her light pulsing erratically. "Me too," Maya whispered back. "But my dad says being scared just means you care about something. And being brave means doing the right thing, even when you're scared." In orbit, the Dominion fleet waited. Not attacking, not even threatening, just waiting. Admiral Vex knew the game. Psychological pressure. The crushing weight of inevitability. The slow erosion of hope that made surrender seem reasonable. He'd done this before. To a dozen colonies and settlements. He'd never done it to humans before. Asterisk. Governor Webb spent those hours doing three things: coordinating defenses, reassuring his people, and watching the sensor displays with an intensity that bordered on religious faith. 36 hours, his aide reported. Still no sign of, "They'll come," Webb interrupted. 38 hours. Dominion is beginning active scans. They're targeting our power infrastructure. They'll come. 42 hours. "Governor, we need to consider evacuation procedures. If they decide to attack early, they'll come." At 45 hours. With 3 hours remaining until the deadline. With the Dominion fleet beginning to move into attack formation. With Governor Webb standing at the command center. Window looking at the pre-dawn sky. They came. The sensor display exploded with new contacts. First a dozen. Then 20. Then 50. Then more, looming across the screen like flowers and fast-forward as human ships. Dropped out of FTL in a coordinated wave that painted the orbital space with friendly signatures. Frigates from Kepler Station. Destroyers from the Armstrong shipyards. A full carrier group that had been on exercises 3 systems away. Corporate security vessels from mining operations. Private ships from independent traders who'd heard the call and answered Dot in leading them all. The HMS Indomitable, flagship of Admiral Catherine Okonkwo, commander of the Human Colonial Defense Force. Webb's aide stared at the display, his mouth open. That's not a rescue force. That's a fleet. That's humanity," Webb corrected. Admiral Vex's face appeared on every screen simultaneously. For the first time since his arrival, his expression showed something other than cool confidence. Uncertainty. "This is Admiral Vex of the Dominion Enforcement. We know who you are." The voice that cut him off was female. Crisp, and carried the kind of authority that came from 3 decades of military service. Admiral Okonkwo's face replaced Vex's on the main display. "This is Admiral Catherine Okonkwo, HCDF. You threatened a human colony. You threatened people under human protection. That was your first mistake. This is a Dominion internal matter," Vex protested. "Those refugees are Dominion subjects, and they were Dominion subjects. Now they're under permanent human protection, which means any attempt to harm them is an act of war against humanity. That was your second mistake. You're bluffing. The Galactic Council will never support. Admiral Vex, I'm going to give you 30 seconds to start your FTL drives. Not because I have to, not because you deserve it, but because there are people on this planet who've been through enough, and they don't need to watch what happens when you refuse." Vex's jaw tightened. "You wouldn't dare attack a Dominion fleet. The consequences. Your 30 seconds started 10 seconds ago." Through the command center windows, Governor Webb watched the sky. In the pre-dawn darkness, lights were appearing, dozens of them. Human ships dropping into lower orbit, surrounding the Dominion fleet in a formation that left no room for misunderstanding. The message was clear. Try it, and see what happens. 20 seconds. Vex's image flickered. Behind him, Webb could see Dominion officers frantically working their consoles, running calculations, trying to find an angle, an advantage. Anything that would let them claim victory. They found none. 15 seconds. Admiral Vex, I should mention we've been scanning your ships. You're carrying plasma mining equipment. The same equipment used to destroy the Seralan settlement on Luminara. Which means under human law, your fleet constitutes material evidence in a war crimes investigation. So you can leave now, or you can leave in restraints. Your choice. 10 seconds. The Dominion ship's drives began to glow. 5 seconds. This isn't over, Vex snarled. The Galactic Council will. The Galactic Council can file a complaint. Care to guess where it'll go? Okonkwo's smile was razor-sharp. Time's up, Admiral. Leave. The Dominion fleet vanished in bursts of FTL light. Their departure so hasty that their wakes disrupted communications for several seconds. When the screens cleared, Admiral Okonkwo was still there, her expression softening slightly. Governor Webb. Admiral Okonkwo. Permission to thank you for saving our asses? Granted. But we didn't do this for thanks. Her gaze shifted, as if she could see through the screen to the colony below. We did it because they're ours now. All of them. The Seralan people are under human protection, by unanimous vote of the Colonial Council, and with full support of Earth's government. Anyone who wants to hurt them will answer to all of us. In the underground shelter, the announcement was met with cheering. Children, human and Seralan both, emerged into morning light to see their sky filled with protective ships. Parents embraced, crying with relief. Maya found Prism sitting alone, staring upward at the orbital display someone had projected on a wall. They came, Prism whispered, her internal light pulsing with colors that humans had no words for. So many of them. They came for us. Of course they did, Maya said, taking her friend's crystalline hand. That's what family does. 2.4. The Battle and the Promise. The aftermath of the Dominion's retreat became a defining moment in Galactic Council history. Admiral Okonkwo didn't just send the Dominion away. She held a press conference, broadcasted across every council channel, translated into 400 languages. Impossible to ignore or suppress, she stood on the bridge of the Indomitable in full military dress, with the planet New Providence visible through the viewport behind her. This is Admiral Catherine Okonkwo of the Human Colonial Defense Force. Today, the Dominion Empire attempted to reclaim refugees who had sought asylum in human space. These refugees, the Seralan people, were driven from their homes by force, hunted through space, and faced extinction. When they crashed on one of our worlds, we did what any decent species should do. We helped them. The Dominion demanded we surrender these people. We refused. They threatened our colony. We showed them why that was a mistake. But this isn't about military strength. It's about principles. The Galactic Council has spent centuries developing laws about refugees, asylum, and protection of the vulnerable. But when those laws matter, when a species faces actual extinction, the Council does nothing. They debate. They form committees. They draft position papers. While people die, humanity will no longer participate in that cruelty. As of today, the Seralan people are under permanent human protection, not as refugees, not as temporary guests, as full members of the human colonial network, with all rights and protections that entails. And I want to be crystal clear about what that means. Okonkwo leaned forward, her eyes hard. Any species, any government, any organization that attempts to harm the Seralan people will be considered as having committed an act of war against humanity. We will respond with the full force of our military, our economy, and our diplomatic power. There will be no warnings, no committee meetings, no debates. You hurt them, you face all of us. This is not negotiable. This is not subject to council vote. This is who we are. She paused, letting the words sink in across 1,000 worlds. The Galactic Council has a choice. Accept our protection of the Saralan and work with us to establish better refugee protocols. Or stand aside while we do it ourselves. But you will not. You cannot make us abandon people who need our help. Because that's what humanity does. We protect our own. And as of today, the Saralan are our own. Not one more tear falls because of them. That's our promise. And humanity keeps its promises. The transmission ended. The Galactic Council chambers erupted in chaos that lasted for 3 days. Some species applauded. Others protested. The Dominion demanded sanctions. Earth's ambassador simply distributed copies of every refugee treaty the Council had ever passed, highlighted the sections the Council had violated, and asked when enforcement would begin. The Council did what it always did. Formed a committee to study the issue. Humanity did what it always did. Ignored the committee and got to work. 2.5 Epilogue 1 year later. Settlement officially renamed New Harmony had transformed beyond recognition. The architecture alone would have been noteworthy. Buildings that were part human engineering, part Saralan crystal singing, creating structures that literally hummed with life. The community center now featured walls that shifted color with the mood of the crowds inside. The school had classrooms that resonated at frequencies, proving to enhance learning in both species. The hospital could diagnose illnesses through both human, medical technology, and Saralan empathic sensing. But the real transformation was less visible and far more profound. Elder Crystallis walked through the morning market. Her crystalline form casting rainbows across stalls, selling both human and Saralan goods. A human child ran past, chased by a young Saralan, both laughing in their respective ways. A mixed group of farmers discussed crop rotation strategies in a hybrid of English and harmonic, resonance that linguists were still trying to categorize. Elder, Thomas Chon called from his produce stand. Got those harmonic melons you wanted. My grandson helped grow them, says they taste better when you sing to them right. Kid's got a gift. Crystallis approached, examining the melons that glowed faintly with residual harmonic energy. Your grandson is correct. The plants respond to his intent. He will be an excellent farmer. Or an excellent Saralan, Thomas chuckled. Half the time I can't tell which species is teaching which anymore. That was the truth of it. Integration hadn't meant Saralan becoming human, or humans becoming Saralan. It meant both species becoming something new, something better, than either had been alone. In the school, now officially renamed the New Harmony Institute of Integrated Learning, Prism stood at the front of a classroom teaching advanced mathematics to human students twice her age. Her light pulsed in complex patterns that translated equations into visual forms, making abstract concepts concrete. And this is why faster-than-light travel requires gravitational anchoring, she explained. Her voice now fluent in English, but retaining a musical quality. You cannot simply point at a star and go. You must account for the harmonics of space-time itself. A human student raised her hand. How did the Saralan figure this out before they had space travel? We listened, Prism said simply. Everything vibrates. Everything sings. You just have to pay attention. Maya Chun, now 12 and serving as a student ambassador, sat in the front row. She'd grown taller over the year, but still wore the friendship bracelet Prism had made her woven from crystal fiber that caught light in impossible ways. After class, the two friends walked through the settlement together, past the memorial garden, where 94 crystal sculptures honored Saralan lost aboard the Silent Harmony. Human and Saralan families had adopted each memorial, maintaining them, decorating them, ensuring the dead were remembered not as victims, but as people who'd been loved. My mom wants to know if you're coming to dinner, Maya said. Dad's making his famous stir-fry. The one with the vegetables you showed him how to grow. I will be there, Prism confirmed. Though I must first help Elder Crystallis with the council testimony preparation. The Galactic Council had, after a year of deliberation, finally agreed to hear the case for establishing formal protection protocols for displaced peoples. Humanity had insisted the Seralan testify personally. The council had no choice but to agree. Are you nervous? Maya asked. About talking to the council? Prism's light flickered uncertainty. Yes, they are the same beings who abandoned us, who let the Dominion destroy our home, who told us we were economic refugees, not worth helping. But you're not talking to them for help anymore, Maya pointed out. You're telling them what they should have done. That's different, is it? Yeah, because you're not asking permission. You're telling them how it's going to be. Because humanity's got your back. In Governor Webb's office now expanded to include a dedicated Xena diplomacy section, the man himself was reviewing the final draft of humanity's proposal to the Galactic Council. Admiral Okonkwo appeared via holographic link from Earth. The Council is going to fight this, she warned. Accepting our refugee protocols means admitting they failed. Politicians hate admitting they failed. Then we'll make it cost more to refuse than to accept, Webb replied. Humanity controls 37 major trade routes now. We've got economic leverage the Council can't ignore. And we've got something else they don't. What's that? We've got proof it works. Webb gestured out his window at the thriving settlement below. New Harmony isn't just surviving. It's flourishing. Human Seralan integrated farming techniques have increased yields by 60%. Our medical advances have saved lives across 3 species. Our educational models are being studied by xenopedagogists everywhere. We took in refugees everyone else abandoned, and we built something beautiful. That's not just a moral victory, Admiral. That's a functional model for how the galaxy should work. Okonkwo smiled. When did you become such an optimist? When I watched 11-year-old human girl cry because she was afraid of losing her alien best friend, and then watched an entire species mobilize to make sure she didn't have to. That evening, as twin suns set over New Harmony, the community gathered for their weekly celebration. The Harmony Festival had evolved from a small gathering into a cultural phenomenon, with visitors coming from across human space to experience the unique blend of human and Seralan arts. Elder Crystallis took her place at the center of the performance. Space, a hybrid structure that humans had built and Seralan had sung into acoustic perfection. Around her, musicians assembled, human instruments and Seralan resonators. Ready to create their weekly miracle. Sarah Chun stood in the crowd with her family, one arm around her husband, the other around Prism, who'd become as much a daughter to her as Maya and Danny. Remember when this was just wheat fields? Thomas murmured. Remember when we thought aliens were just in stories? Sarah countered. Governor Webb joined them, accompanied by several human officials and Seralan leaders. He'd aged noticeably over the past year, the stress of standing up to the Dominion and restructuring colonial governance to accommodate. A new species had taken its toll, but he looked happy. The music began. Crystallis raised her crystalline arms, and her body began to resonate a frequency that humans could feel in their bones, that made the air itself seem to shimmer. Human musicians joined in, guitar, drums, violin, flute. The sounds wove together, separate but harmonious, each species contributing something the other couldn't produce alone. Prism and Maya danced together in the crowd, spinning and laughing, their friendship a living embodiment of what New Harmony represented. And watching it all, Elder Crystallis felt something she hadn't experienced since before the Dominion came. Absolute certainty that her people would survive. Not just survive, thrive. Because they'd found something rare in the galaxy. They'd found humans, later. As the festival wound down and families headed home, Crystalis stood with Governor Webb beneath the stars. "Thank you," she said, for perhaps the 1,000th time. "You've thanked us enough." Webb replied, "No, I have not." Crystalis's light pulsed with colors that signified deep emotion. "You gave us more than shelter, more than protection. You gave us hope. You gave us family. You gave us the belief that the galaxy can be better than it is. We just did what was right." "No, Governor. You did what was difficult. What was expensive. What was dangerous." She turned to face him fully. The Galactic Council had rules about not interfering, about following procedures, about political considerations. You ignored all of that because you saw people who needed help and decided rules matter less than compassion. Webb was quiet for a moment. "You know what Maya said to me? Right before the Dominion came?" "What?" "She said, 'We're not giving them Prism.' Not, 'You can't give them Prism.' She said 'we,' like she had authority. Like her opinion mattered as much as mine." He smiled. And she was right. Because at the end of the day, this wasn't a governmental decision. It was a human decision. Every person in this colony chose to stand up for your people. I just made it official. And now? Now we make sure it never happens again." Webb pulled out a datapad, showing her the draft proposal for the council. Not just for the Saralan. For every species that finds itself displaced, hunted, or abandoned. We're pushing for mandatory intervention protocols, protected resettlement zones, and economic support for colonies that take in refugees. The Council will never agree. Then we'll do it ourselves. Humanity will create a network of protected worlds. Any species that needs help will have somewhere to go. And anyone who tries to hurt them faces all of you," Crystalis finished. "Not one more tear." "Not one more tear," Webb confirmed, dot above them. The lights of the human fleet still orbited permanent guardians now, ensuring New Harmony's safety. Among them, the Indomitable maintained its position, a constant reminder that humanity's promise wasn't just words dot in the settlement below. Lights began to dim as families settled in for the night. Human homes and Saralan dwellings side by side, integrated so completely that visitors sometimes couldn't tell where one species' architecture ended and the others began. Prism lay in her room at the Chun household, surrounded by artwork she and Maya had created together, paintings that combined human color theory with Saralan light refraction techniques. On her desk, a school project, My Family, with pictures of her parents who'd been lost, and the humans who'd found her. She dimmed her light to sleep, but not before sending out one final telepathic pulse, a message that every Saralan in the settlement received. "I am safe. I am loved. I am home. Dot, and across New Harmony, 94 crystal sculptures in the memorial garden caught starlight and moonlight, refracting it in patterns that looked almost like approval. The dead could rest, the living could build, and humanity would make sure no one ever had to choose between the two again. Asterisk.